Surprise, surprise, we have a new Batman show. But is it any good? Tone. As far as the atmosphere of the show, this series aims to capture some of that Batman the Animated Series magic, taking place in a much older Gotham, presumably around the 1940s. That dark, gothic, timeless Gotham atmosphere is well presented and effectively immerses you in, scratching at that Batman the Animated Series nostalgia. The animation does a good job of complementing this and is mostly pretty clean and visually interesting. As for the tone of the actual story, Caped Crusader can get a bit messy. It feels like it's indecisive about where it wants to go. Actual dark, gritty, mature stuff, or just a for everybody kind of show. Some episodes really take it in a dark, serious direction, which is nice to see. But that tone doesn't feel consistent, as sometimes even in the same episode, characters can start talking and behaving like they would in a kids show. And you get unrealistic events that stretch your suspension of disbelief to a point where it becomes silly. So yeah, I would have appreciated if the show fully committed to being serious and mature. The animated series' tone felt much more consistent in that regard. Plot. The show is only 10 episodes, each going around 25-ish minutes. It's not really much, and it mostly follows a villain of the week formula, with each episode introducing a new villain for Batman to face off against. There is an overarching narrative of sorts, but it isn't that important. It mostly relates to the individual character arcs instead, so let's talk about that. Characters. Probably the most controversial part of this show has been the way it has handled its characters. For the most part, I think the main cast, which includes Barbara Gordon, Commissioner Gordon, Batman/Bruce Wayne, Harvey Dent, and Renee Montoya, are all decently written as characters. We don't really have a lot of time over the short time span of the series, but what we do get decently fleshes them out. Now, what I like here about the way the characters are introduced and shown is that we don't get a lot of, hey, I'm Barbara Gordon and I'm a lawyer who hates crime but can be empathetic. As in, we don't get force-fed character traits, but rather see them for ourselves organically and witness them somewhat subtly through their dialogue and actions. I think this is most true with Batman, which we frankly don't get enough of. But when Batman or Bruce Wayne does show up, and gradually throughout the episodes, you get a sense of what this iteration of the character is like, and it is genuinely really interesting to see. This Batman is basically a total sociopath. He doesn't care about Alfred, he doesn't mind really hurting enemies, even if they're cops. He's manipulative as Bruce Wayne, and a lot of other things. This version of Bruce is completely consumed by the cowl, and it's interesting to see a version of the character that isn't afraid to show us the edges and the trauma, and the insanity necessary to get someone to dress up as a bat and run around hunting criminals in the night. Additionally, Hamish Linklater, the voice of Batman, is very good, and definitely one of the best I've ever heard aside from Kevin Conroy. As far as the good guy characters go, I think they're all decently interesting, with a little bit of moral grayness added to each to make them more distinct. Most notable is Harvey Dent. I really like what they did with the character, leaning into him being a kind of attention freak who prioritizes his good media image and whatnot. As for the villains, a lot of them have been taken in pretty interesting directions. Some episodes have villains that we barely learn anything about or don't get to see enough of, and are thus left pretty underwhelming. But the more popular of Batman's rogues gallery are given better treatment. These new directions work decently for some, like Harley Quinn, but I think fall flat for many others. While it's not an issue for me for the Penguin to be a woman now, I think it's weird that they removed one of the most important aspects of the character, his ugly deformedness, and replaced it with this charismatic, well-loved theater persona. I think enough Batman villains have a penchant for the theatrical, and that Penguin didn't need to be made into a star in that regard as well. Another character I really didn't like was Catwoman. Selena Kyle just up and decides to become a supervillain. And in the next couple of days, she has a suit, weapons, a car, and several years worth of acrobatics, stealth, and fighting skills. It's just pretty absurd. Overall, the show's pretty decent. It doesn't have enough of Batman, but the version we do get of him is pretty interesting, and the other characters are interesting enough to follow on their own. I never really felt like I couldn't wait until a specific character's scenes were done so we could go back to Batman. No, they were pretty okay on their own, and I feel like the animation, atmosphere, and vibe of the show helped with that, because it was nice to look at even when Batman wasn't on screen. I think the show finds its stride a few episodes in, and when it does, it becomes decently enjoyable. It's nothing too special, but it's worth watching to see the new directions some of these classic characters are taken in. It's a slow start, but a slow start like this should make way for a great second season, so here's hoping. Thanks for watching, let me know what you thought of Batman Caped Crusader in the comments below, and see you later.